All right, let's go to that wonderful book called Colossians. In the 3rd chapter, you're ready now for me to begin reading. If ye then be risen with Christ, seek those things which are above, where Christ sitteth on the right hand of God. Now, a thought came to me, and I'll share it with you. Lost people do not seek God. The seeking is for the Christian. Now, you can tell a lost man to seek the Lord, but what you ought to be doing really is seeking the lost man, because he's dead. A lot of people feel like that if they work hard enough, that they can be able to go to heaven. But the Bible doesn't teach that. Not at all. Because the Bible said in Ephesians chapter 2, you hath he quickened who were dead. Now that's the condition of a sinner. He's dead. He's dead. And you hear people say, I'm trying to make heaven my home. You'll never make heaven your home because you're dead without Christ. That's the reason you don't understand. You couldn't understand. That's the reason you couldn't sing. Dead people don't sing. And you're dead, but there's another death coming. We'll get to that in a little bit. But he said here, I want you to seek those things which are above. This is an important verb for the Christian, but not for the lost person. Seek those things which are above, where Christ sitteth on the right hand of God. You know what lost people seek? They seek the things from below. They seek the world. Too many of our church members, we're seeking after the things of the world. All right, the second thing I want to say, not only seek those things, but he said, set your affections. Set your affection on things above, not on things on the earth. You know, I saw something else I'd not seen. Did you notice when I gave that, I said, set your affections? It didn't say that. Set your affection. Our affection is supposed to be singular after we're saved. We're not supposed to have a bunch of affections. Did you know that? We're supposed to have one affection, and that's a spiritual affection. We're supposed to love Jesus primarily, first, last, and always. We're just to love Jesus. You'd say, well, what about your wife? Don't you worry about the wife. If you love Jesus like you ought to, you love her. The home situation will be governed mainly by your relationship to Jesus Christ. I'd say that this morning, across America, that probably 7 or 8 out of 10 homes are unhappy. At least that many. You know why? They look to each other for happiness instead of to Jesus. I'm preaching something good this morning. You better get it. Some of you little girls said, Brother Roloff, I can never be happy because my mother and my daddy divorced, and my daddy's a drunkard, and my mother is a walking sinner, and she doesn't love me, and I can never... Oh, yeah, I got good news for you. You can be happy. I mean, Jesus will make up for all that. All you got to do is just get married to Him. My happiness doesn't depend on people. It depends on me and the Lord. I tell you what will tear me up. You talk about something that tears me up, that's sin. Don't you tell me you can live in unforgiven and unconfessed sin and be happy. Not if you've ever been saved, you can't. Listen, this work of salvation, this experience of grace brings about a drastic change. It's the most revolutionary thing that ever happened to anybody, because it takes the old things away, and behold, all things, didn't say some, all things become new. There's another little verse down under it. That's the way it's going to always be. I'd have been the first to quit. Listen, I wouldn't have been in this work 90 days if God hadn't have blessed it. But He said, this is it. This is it. Read on. Set your affection. Set your affection. Get it set on things above. This is an above chapter, isn't it? This is twice He said, let's get above. Let's climb above. Let's get above. Talking to Christians. Set your affection on things above, not on things on the earth. For you're dead. You're dead. Here we are. This is the reason. For you're dead, and your life is hid with Christ in God. We've already attended our funeral. We went out to the cemetery and laid away the old sinful body. I know it'll rise up, and I know, but He said you're dead now, and your life is hid with Christ in God. When Christ, who is our life, did you get that as present tense? Not was our life or shall be our life. He is our life right now. There's no life apart from His life. I'm alive in Him today. Galatians 2:20 said, I'm crucified with Christ. Nevertheless I live, yet not I, but Christ liveth in me. The life that I now live. When? Now. When is now? Right now. The life that I now live, I live in the flesh. In the flesh. I'm living in the flesh. I know that. And he said, but I live it by the faith of the Son of God who loved me and gave himself for me. Now then, did you know there's something sweet about that? If your life is hid with Christ in God, the devil can't get to it. If my life is hid with Christ in God, now the devil's everywhere, you know that. I went down to the islands and we were over at St. Croix for 3 services, 3 churches during the day, and then a little visit to the cemetery where my sweet Corpus Christi friend gave her life on the mission field. And she being dead yet speaketh. And when I mentioned her name after going to kneel at the grave of my organist of years ago, before her husband was ever saved, I mean, she used to play the organist beautifully, had a beautiful singing voice, but when I mentioned her name in those churches, there was reverence. She gave her life. You know, that's one reason I've been burdened about supplies for the missionaries. And when I thought about the oranges and the grapefruit, and the tangerines and the carrots and the onions and the cabbage and all the things, and I mean, I don't want to ever run out of carrots on this farm. I don't want to ever run out of onions on this farm. And I tell you, you don't know what I'm talking about, but you'll know before 10 more years. This nation is dying rapidly now with malnutrition. And of course, we've been accused of malnutrition out here at the home. And they said the girls are hungry. They're just hungry. But they're hungry while they're gaining weight. Girl said to me last night, I gained 30 pounds. I said, that's too much. While she's been dying with malnutrition, she gained 30 pounds. While the girls lost all the pimples off of their faces. While their faces got as beautiful and smooth and the eyes sparkle like diamonds, they were dying with malnutrition. It's the most unusual death I've ever seen in all of my life. The world just doesn't... Let me tell you something. If you eat according to tradition, you'll die a long time before you're supposed to. If you eat what the supermarket and what the home economics department in the college recommends, you'll die many years before you... And you'll be sick all the way. Tradition has always been wrong. Tradition spiritually. If you live according to a religious tradition, you'll go to hell. Tradition was the thing that crucified Christ. Did you know it? They came to him one day and said, why do you violate our tradition? Why can't you act like the rest of us? Why do you have to be so different? Why can't you join the ministerial alliance and meet with us? That's exactly what they were talking about. And Jesus looked at them and said, why do you violate the scriptures with your tradition? You bunch of whited sepulchres. He told them, didn't he? If you want to read something this afternoon, you read the 23rd chapter of the book of Matthew and see what Jesus said about it. I never have pulled a skinning knife as sharp as the one he had. I never have preached a sermon that's scalded and scaled and skinned like he did in the 23rd chapter. Never have. You know, this whole world needs to be rebuked, but everybody's afraid to do it. She needs to be admonished, and she needs to be exhorted, but it seems like people are scared to do it. But you never help anybody until you correct them. Well, let's go on. When Christ, who is our life, he is our life right now, shall appear, then shall ye also appear with him in glory. In other words, this is not all of it. We're going to be with him here. We're going to be with him up there. Now, here's your suggestion. Verse 5, mortify. Mortify. Therefore. Now, you know what the therefore refers to? It means that you've already been crucified with Christ. You're dead to the world. You're risen. You've got your affection set. Therefore, he said, you can mortify, therefore, your members which are upon the earth. Now, what are they? Fornication. All right. Mortify, therefore, your members. Fornication. Uncleanness. Inordinate affection. Evil concupiscence, covetousness, which is idolatry. Did you notice those 3 things that you're to mortify first? Fornication, uncleanness, inordinate affection. For which things' sake the wrath of God cometh on the children of disobedience, in the which ye also walked sometime when ye lived in them. But now ye also put off all these. Now here, we're going to have to take off some things, aren't we? Anger, wrath, malice, blasphemy, filthy communication out of your mouth. Lie not one to another, seeing that you put off the old man with his deeds, and have put on the new man, which is renewed in knowledge after the image of him that created him. For there's neither Greek nor Jew, circumcision nor uncircumcision, barbarian, Scythian, bond nor free, but, and here's my theme this morning, Christ is all. That's all that matters. Christ is all, and in all. And when he becomes your all, you'll put him in all. Put on, therefore, as the elect of God. We're not going to get just undressed without putting something better on. He said you can take off those old rotten rags of anger, wrath, malice, blasphemy, filthy communication out of your mouth. And he said you can mortify your members, fornication, uncleanness, inordinate affection, and evil concupiscence, and all the things that are akin to it, like miniskirts and television, and gambling, cards, and lying, and stealing, and hating your mother and dad, and all that's connected. All of it's connected. Now then, let's get dressed up. We're fixing to go to church together now. Put on, therefore, as the elect of God, holy and beloved. Now, that's what we are. See, we're holy now, and we're beloved now. Bowels of mercies, that really means hearts of mercies, kindness, humbleness of mind, meekness, long-suffering, forbearing one another, and forgiving one another. If any man have a quarrel against any, even as Christ forgave you, so also do ye. Dear friends, let me say this. This home never has gotten so perfect, but what it'll have to apologize every once in a while for mistakes. And I want to be the first, and Brother will do the same thing. He said, Brother Roloff, we've had some mistakes around here, and we've done some mistakes, and so, sure we have. And we're probably going to make some more. But I'll tell you one thing, I'll apologize to the district attorney or the county attorney, to the welfare department. I'll apologize to anybody when I'm wrong. And I believe we ought to. Anytime we're wrong, we ought to apologize and ask them to forgive us. They may not forgive us, and they may hold it on our record, but that's their responsibility. Brother, anytime we make a mistake, or if we ever unduly unkind to any little girl in this home, of course, we've never treated any little girl as rough as the world treated them before we got them. We've never shot a dope needle into their, and we've never drawn their brains out of their head, and we've never fixed their eyes where they wouldn't focus, and we've never put them in a bed of immorality, and we've never made any attack on them like that. None of our workers ever have, and by the grace of God never will. We've never been as rough and filthy and ungodly as the world was before they came, but the world will love its own. No, the little girl came to me and said, Brother Roloff, you can't imagine what I went through when I was in the prison for 4 years. The beatings, the lonely time of exile and isolation, months and months and months, all alone and so afraid. So afraid. There's no need for any little girls to get afraid. You've got the security of your life right now. You've got people that would die for you. I believe old Raymond Weatherford would walk across that lot and die for any little girl in this home. I really do. And if I know my heart, I believe I'd stand between you and certain death if it cost me my life to protect you. That's our responsibility, this home. We're not playing. This is serious. This is for keeps. Now, I don't think you girls sometimes realize the security, the loving security. You don't have to go to bed afraid at night that somebody's going to make an invasion into your room and drag you out. No, sir. Oh, listen, if y'all had the real spiritual sense, because I know you came blind. I know many of you are blind. I was blind too before I got saved. Everybody is. Therefore, we cannot become overly impatient with unsaved people. Got to win them to Christ. And so he said, you just go ahead and mortify your members. And he said, get to the place where Christ is all and in all. Now put on, therefore, as the elect of God, holy and beloved, bowels of mercies, kindness, humbleness of mind, meekness, long-suffering. Verse 14 now. And above all these things, that's good. Above all these things, put on love or charity, which is the bond of perfectness, our perfection. Put on love. Listen, what he's saying is this. When you really get saturated and baptized and soaked in liquid waves of love, brother, you're heading toward perfection then. I mean, when you get to where you can just love everybody and be patient and forgiving and kind and forbearing, you're moving on toward the perfection place then, see. And that's the way we're going to be when we get to heaven. There'll never be any wars in heaven because there'll be nothing but love. And Jesus will be the administrator of heaven. So he said, above all these things, put on love. Verse 15, and I'm going to have to close now. Let the peace of God rule in your hearts. Now that's what ought to rule the Rebecca home. Everybody here ought to be motivated by love. Let the peace of God rule. You know what the peace of God is? Well, it's Jesus. Said he's become our peace. Broken down the middle wall of partition between us. Not hard for me to figure out what the peace of God is. It's Jesus. When you have Jesus in your heart. Put on, therefore, as the elect of God, holy and beloved. Yes, he said, put on something that'll look good and wear well. Let the peace of God rule, to the which also you're called in one body, and be ye thankful. That's a great text. Be ye thankful. Let the word of Christ dwell in you richly, in all wisdom, teaching and admonishing one another in psalms, and hymns, and spiritual songs, singing with grace in your hearts unto the Lord. Oh, if today, I said if today, we could just get a glimpse of the goodness of the Lord. I hold in my hand a clipping somebody sent me. The attendance, 50,000. The setting, rock and roll festival. The debris, beer cans, wine bottles, filth, trash, and marijuana smell and dope smell. 50,000 little lost boys and girls, doomed and damned forever, went there and came away with a rock sound rattling their brain, bursting their eardrums. Came away, they said hi. Made such a mess as to disgrace the city where they met. 50,000. Girls, wouldn't you like to have 50,000 young people at one time to come? But we're not fleshy enough. We're not dirty enough. Our music doesn't have enough of the amplified sound and that beat of the jungle in it. And therefore, they're hooked on another sound. It's not rock, it's mud, but they're hooked. But that's the condition of this generation. And mothers and dads, I tell you, you better do something about it real quick, or your children will be mixed up in it. And once they get hooked on it, there's no way unless you get Jesus in on the scene. Mortify, humiliate, he said embarrass, and he said I want you to get you some psalms and hymns and spiritual songs, and I want you to sing with grace in your hearts to the Lord. You know what that means? That's for Christians. Brother, when the Christian, he's got grace in his heart. He's been saved by grace. I'll give you two verses and close the message. Whatsoever you do. Verse 17, verse 23. We didn't finish the chapter. Whatsoever you do, in word or deed, do all in the name of the Lord Jesus Christ, giving thanks to God and the Father by him. And whatsoever you do, do it heartily, as to the Lord and not unto men.